Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, welcome aboard. Already up to show number 455. How did this happen? We're trying to get to the bottom of this, but apparently we're still on the air.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Finn and Shane Stanfield in studio.
I'm here.
We want to welcome you to the show today. Of course, we always look forward to chatting with Matthew Archbold, our guest this week. There's so much going on in the world, and you really need somebody that can at least give you the straight scoop on what you're reading on all the news sources out there, and look at it through a Catholic lens, but also with a little bit of humor on top. So we always look forward to our chat with Matthew Archbold. We're starting to see a lot more ads now, an ad blitz for the Vote Yes on Issue 1, which is great to see. I know there are some yard signs out there.
Oh, I've seen a lot of those.
Have you?
Yeah.
Because I have not seen that many of them, and maybe I think the worst of people, but I think our side isn't the type that would steal a yard sign.
Oh, that goes on.
But their side
for sure.
might.
Yeah.
I hate to even say that, but we know that happens.
That does go on, and I'm sure that's what's happening to a lot of the signs. I mean, they put them at street corners, and and they will disappear for sure.
Yeah. So, and of course, obviously, a very important issue coming up. Only thing on the special election ballot on Tuesday, a week from yesterday, the 8th.
Yeah.
So certainly encouraging everyone to get out the vote, as it were. The bishops are not telling you how to vote; they're just asking you to get informed, and it's critically important, especially since there's so much disinformation out there. So,
the disinformation is huge.
Yeah, I mean, how much are you getting informed if you only hear one side?
They're scare tactics, but they're very deceptive scare tactics too.
Absolutely.
The one that I still have to chuckle. I mean, it's a shame, but you hear it quite a bit. Something like that. If you vote yes, the Ohio will lose its the majority.
Yeah, the majority rule. It ends majority rule.
It ends majority rule, and I just scratch my head, and I'm thinking, well, no, this is more of a majority.
Well, how do you go to 50+1, the current state, to the proposed amendment, which would 60. Call for 60?
Yeah, 60.
How does that lessen the majority? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
But again, if you repeat the lie enough,
yes,
people get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. They just it's a drumbeat. You hear it over and over and over again. And if somebody doesn't read the bill, the proposed legislation, and they stick to what they hear on the TV and the radio, then they're going to be led astray for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I know how I'm voting. I'm definitely going to cast my yes vote on Tuesday. Some people have voted already in advance. Yeah. Which is fine. And again, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I certainly would hope that people would see the common sense in a yes vote anyway.
Well, and if anybody had eyes to see, what happened to Michigan last year, that was that's just a shame, because it's not a grassroots effort in these cases. You have these national organizations that come in and pour tens of millions of dollars into ad campaigns and such to really to deceive. That's what they're doing here, and they're actually the ones that write this legislation and propose it through the state legislature, and that's exactly what's happening here in Ohio. I think it's the ACLU and somebody else that maybe it's Planned Parenthood, but
and a bunch of other out-of-state monies that are flying in.
But they're the ones that proposed this amendment for that's on the November ballot.
Right.
Yeah. So this special election next week, next Tuesday, will help curb that, because it will it'll change the ability to get this a constitutional amendment. The increase, from 50+1 to at least 60% of the state.
Right. So let's hope that the vote prevails, that we strengthen the Constitution rather than keep it in its weakened state.
Sure.
We're always pleased to have Matthew Archbold on. We hear from him on Thursday mornings, which is probably a more convenient time for him, because This time of day is a little more difficult because he's running kids around here and there.
Oh, yeah.
So, glad to have him with us. And of course, he's an author, a blogger, a columnist, and a Catholic father of 5. So, yeah, he doesn't get much sleep, but he's an award-winning journalist. And, of course, every Thursday morning here on Annunciation Radio, we find out what's on the mind of Matthew Archbold. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it's always worth a reread of his best-selling pro-life novel, American Antigone. And, of course, love the Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage book that came out a couple of years ago, but also to look and see where some of these cases have proceeded from when he first documented them. So that's a great book. And then, of course, we always rely on, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you get to the heart of these news stories and what's being presented out there. And his CreativeMinorityReport.com website really spotlights these current topics and news stories without losing a sense of humor, and that's no easy task. So let me welcome Matthew Archbold to Faith with Reasons. Hi, Matt. How are you?
I got to admit, I'm a little confused as to what you were saying with the story before. Are you telling me that the people who are pro-killing people are now stooping to misleading people?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it?
It really is. I'm stunned. I'm stunned.
Just when you think you could trust somebody.
And I know one of the big ones is Emily's List. That should never be left off. That group has funded millions of dollars into expanding abortion access. And that was one thing. For 50 years, we were so focused on overturning Roe v. Wade. And it was a miracle. Let's be honest. It was a miracle. And when it happened, I think we were all so stunned that we didn't start the battle right away. And we took a beating last year on a lot of these state rules. And, like Michigan went the other way. A couple of states really shocked us and went the other way. And I really feel like Ohio is the first time we have our feet under us and we're pushing back again. And we're really focused. And I really pray I'm right about that. But
no, that's true. They mobilized pretty quickly, a lot sooner than anybody else did, to the credit of not only those in legislature, but those like Ohio Right to Life and some other groups that right from the decision on said, hey, our work begins now, and this is what we need to focus on. And I think mobilized a lot of people early on. And you're right, because the other side also was mobilizing very early on. They had a game plan in place already. So, hopefully all those efforts will pay off for challenges to law, like what's coming up.
Yeah, and it's a massive change. And, it's a different funding. I know a lot of folks have given charitably to a lot of pro-life organizations that funded, the March for Life and the SBA list, which focuses on federal issues. But now we really have to focus our prayers and our finances towards state organizations as we, battle this out state by state and fight for the sacredness of life, which really underpins everything for us, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
As Catholics, that really is the crux of it, that everyone you see is an immortal being loved by God. And the second you lose that, isn't that the greatest news in the world for people? And the second you lose that, the world just becomes a much darker place. And I spend my life, as you do yours, trying to remind people of that.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. It was seemingly overnight that people lost touch of that, and I know it's been happening very slowly over the years. That's very clear to see. But the shock of the repercussions that has it seems to have reared its ugly head very quickly.
I mean, you look at Canada right now, which is, allowed eugenics, and that's doubling and tripling, and it is a runaway train right now. How many people are being euthanized, because they're sad, because they live alone, because they're depressed, because they're old and they don't feel like they have a role anymore in society. And, whereas that used to be a call for more love, now it's a call for euthanization. And that's exactly the kind of darkness that Catholicism battles. When you see someone in need, you reach out to help them. Reaching out to kill them is not an act of mercy, no matter what they say.
Amen to that. And, it's encouraging to see, like, there's a huge event coming up on the 6th in Cincinnati. It's billed as the most important rally since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Prayer warriors heading to Cincinnati for the huge event on August 6th. It's the feast, of course, of the Transfiguration of the Lord, but it's the Rosary Rally. And the organizers are hoping to encourage all Christians in Ohio to vote yes on Issue 1 2 days after the fact on August the 8th to raise that threshold from a simple majority to 60%. And they've got some really top-notch Catholic leaders that are kind of headlining this rally, including actor Jim Caviezel, and Planned Parenthood worker turned pro-lifer Abby Johnson will be there as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, who had Jim Caviezel as a movie star again? A bankable movie star on their 2023 bingo card. I mean, it just tells right. the Lord is definitely at work in the world. I mean, Hollywood did everything they could to destroy this guy, and he just keeps showing up, and that and doing great work. And we should all be grateful to the work he does. I mean, he's a great voice out there.
So let me ask you that. I mean, obviously we're talking about Sound of Freedom, and I heard that sat on the shelf for 5 years. It is, and I'm not sure why. Was it not produced? Was it just written and not filmed? I don't really know the details of it, but I tell you, we just went to see it. And I'm just, I think it's probably one of the best movies I've seen in a very, very long time. It's so moving. And for those that are listening that have not seen it, I strongly suggest that you go, because it's still being shown in the movies. And it is, it does speak to, basically rampant slavery that we have worldwide, into the tens of millions of people, it's estimated. Adults that are enslaved, but primarily the movie focuses on children that are enslaved in the sex trade business. It's just horrific. But let me ask you, Matt, what do you know about why that was shelved, and why they were obviously intentionally keeping this from the theaters?
Well, that's the thing. Firstly, it was made. It was made 5 years ago. It was filmed, edited, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then it was essentially put up with money by Fox. And then Disney bought Fox around that time. And then one of the first actions that Disney took was to shelf that movie. And they said, no one's ever going to see it.
Wow.
Now, yeah, why would you do something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, just try to make any money, even straight to video money or video on demand, put it on Netflix. But they didn't want it seen. And that look, we all have, we all look at that with a raised eyebrow. Why wouldn't you want that movie seen? Because the thing about it is we always talk about how important the movie is. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good movie, and it you follow it along, and it's a heck of a ride, and it's just really super well done. And this has been actually a pretty amazing time. We had the movie Jesus Revolution, mm-hmm. which did very, very well. Now we have this movie. There's something happening here, and that's the thing when you really look at the different ways of looking at humanity, looking at children even. Are our children an inconvenience? Are children something to be used? Is anybody something to be used? And that's what we're against. You can never use another human being. In my personal life, I take it to the most ridiculous levels. You do it to start to show kids, the kids, like, even when I'm going past, a toll driver, I have to have a small conversation with the person because I can't use anybody else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They can't just be the toll driver. They can't just be the hand that takes the change. They can't just be the person that takes the card. I always have to have some interaction. My kids always make fun of me for that. But I'm serious about it. And I think that's such a key factor. No one can be used for someone else's enjoyment. No one can be used for another person's gain. And that is really where everything changes when you accept Christ into your life, that everyone is a miracle and should be treated that way. And, then the movie, The Sound of Freedom, really does show that. And the great phrase, God's children are not for sale. Yeah. And that seems to be catching on for a lot of places. And this is a huge problem. I mean, I was joking before I got on the air. Sometimes we plan on what we're talking about, and then we end up talking about something completely different.
Well, that's the plan for today.
That's what we're doing. We just throw it out the window, and we just get going. But it is amazing. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell went to jail for trafficking minors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To nobody. Nobody has been prosecuted. Nobody has been named. Who did they traffic to? How is that possible that two people go to jail for trafficking to nobody?
Yeah.
That's insane. That there is a huge, and I hate being this guy. There's a huge conspiracy going on to silence this. And, the sooner we crack this open, the more light we shine on this, the more attention this gets, the better the world gets.
And, of course, many people are going to say, conspiracy theory, but there's no theory here. It's obvious.
Yeah, it is. I mean, how can you, as you point out, how can you be against, and want to suppress any information about probably one of our biggest, if not the biggest, social problems we have these days? What is so dangerous about this message that you have to suppress it, keep it from people? What are you protecting?
Right. Look, the Disney executives, you have a choice, okay? You can say, I was suppressing this story because I didn't want the news about child trafficking to get out. And that's pretty damning if you're part of Disney,
yep.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
The other thing the executives have, this is the only other explanation, is I'm really bad at my job and I don't know what a hit movie is. Which one of the two? Just tell us. It has to be one of the two. Pick one, and then we can fire you. Let's go.
Yeah.
And you look at all the Disney movies that have been coming out lately, they're all losing money.
They're trash, and they deserve to lose money. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of movies, though, there's a movie coming out that's going to be in theaters, speaking of Christian-based movies, October the 5th, Mother Teresa and Me. This is a story about a pregnant woman's journey through her own spiritual crisis after being inspired by the amazing story of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. So another great movie is going to be making its way to the theaters this fall.
I hadn't heard about that one. I'm usually up to date on this.
Yeah.
You're beating me to the punch.
There we go. Fathom Events. Well, they just announced it, so, you've been busy dropping kids off and picking kids up. But, yeah, this should be a very important movie. And, of course, it's October 5th only, but I think they said that about Sound of Freedom, too. It's going to be a one day, okay, now we'll make it 3 days. Okay, now it's in its 5th week or 6th week. So,
right.
If it's bankable, it'll stay in the theaters longer.
Yeah, that was the most amazing thing about Sound of Freedom is they were stunned how much it made in its first week, and that it had outgained Mission Impossible the first weekend, and then amazingly, in its third week, it made more money than it did its first week, and now I think it's above $150 million, and it hasn't even been released globally yet.
Oh, that's
wow.
right. Yeah.
That is all just domestic.
Yeah.
And, you would have to think, Eduardo Verástegui, I don't know how you say that name.
Sounds right to me. I have no idea either.
I guarantee you, a lot of the folks in that movie are going to have a lot of pull, say, in like South America and Mexico. And, so the expectation for a global hit is actually increasing.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that have heard about the success, and they're going to be anxious to see it outside of the United States. So, yeah, there'll be a market there for sure.
No matter what the New York Times and Disney says.
Yeah, right. Matthew Archbold is our guest here on Faith with Reasons. CreativeMinorityReport.com is one way to really find out what he's covering, because that's updated all the time. And, of course, we love to have him on and just talk about current events and things that are taking place not only in the news, but also in his own life. Can you share a little personal, any personal struggles you're going through right now? We want to do any on the radio analysis or anything like that?
Well, it's funny. My daughter is working as a janitor at the school over the summer, just to make some money off the tuition. It's something she does, and they gave her a drill to hang some pictures. Let's just say there are more holes in the wall than there were pictures. So I'm a little unclear if lawyers are going to get involved. I don't know. Do I have to find a new school? I'm a little unclear about that. But
well, here's your defense. You gave her the grill or the grill.
Right, exactly. Right. That's right. I'm not stupid enough to hand that to her. But yeah, so that's what's going on.
Well, let us know if they give her a nail gun.
I'll be sure to lay low if that happens.
I did that. I think it was even in grade school. I was working at the parish at Rozier Cathedral, and that's a huge church and school. And one of the things I had to do was go way, way up where the pigeons go on the outside, on the church, kind of, I don't know what you call that area around it, but.
And when you say where the pigeons go, you mean
exactly,
that's where they go.
Yes, that's what I had to do. Just clean that up and let us know when you're done, because we'll be down here. Good character builder.
Right. Well, that prepares you for being a parent, because that's pretty much what you're doing the rest of your parenting too.
This is true.
Oh yeah.
You are cleaning up the mess.
Now, I'm not sure if you've had opportunity as a father to put a drill in your daughter's hand previously. Is she missing that training from you, or are you not inclined to do that yourself?
Okay, so I have a few strengths. Okay.
Yeah.
And none of them include holding a drill.
Okay.
I will say I am really all my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 daughters and a boy. They can all change a tire without any hesitation,
mm-hmm.
and they can all jump start the car without any hesitation. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty good. That way you can't fix anything like for real, but you won't be on the side of the road for very long. You'll be able to get back. Then we can get to some responsible adults, probably not me, and then fix the car for real.
Well, that's basic skills that you're giving them. That's great. That's impressive. A lot of adults don't know how to change a tire.
Yeah, I mean, I figured when she was given the job, I figured it was going to be carry this box down here, go change these light bulbs. I wasn't prepared for my daughter coming home and reporting they handed her a drill and told her to decorate this guy's office.
Decorate with holes?
Yeah, right. It's sort of a feng shui thing,
It's just modern art, yes.
That's right.
Give her a Sharpie and have her connect the dots.
Right. So she was actually promoting communication between the vice principal and the athletic director. by connecting their two offices with holes. That way they could communicate with one another more readily. That's really, she's all about just opening up lines of communication, literally.
Smart girl. That'll look good on the resume too, I'm telling you.
That's right. I'm sure Yale and Harvard will look very, very favorably on that.
Now, Matthew, I want to get into some of the stories on Catholic Minority Report, but first I want to ask you, as far as your novel is concerned, on American Antigone, do you see a resurgence in sales in that or interest in that book as abortion and attacks on clinics and so forth as that heats up? Have you getting more questions on it? Or?
It is funny. I do receive more emails. I'm actually receiving more emails now than I did when it first came out. I never know about sales until the publishers always keep that very, very secret until the quarter, and then they kind of share it with you, mm-hmm. and then they send you your check for 78 cents. Mm-hmm. That literally, I did receive one check for 78 cents. We put it up on the refrigerator for a while.
It's almost worth framing,
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You go into a restaurant or you go into the bar and you've got the dollar bill pinned to the wall, and this is your
That's
check.
Right.
Not even $1. Right. It's 78 cents.
Well, right. And that's the difference. It doesn't the size of the check doesn't matter, because once you get paid for something, you're a professional. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Even you're just very poorly paid, but everyone expects that from writers, so that's okay. But it is funny though how that debate really does stay with us, and that because it is such a basic thing for us, and how. And I really wish that it were talked about more from the pulpit and more openly. But even on Facebook, you have Catholics who are very, very afraid to talk about things like life issues, mm-hmm. Because of losing friends, and I think there are ways to talk about it fairly, and I hope I did that with American Antigone, but it's such a crucial battle that we're in, and thank God the Catholics are fighting it. I'm so proud to be Catholic.
Yes.
Amen. Yeah. And of course, it's a novel, and it's a very important book. So if you haven't read American Antigone yet, you could go to the library and I suppose borrow it, but it'd be better if you bought a copy. If you buy a copy of it, then you might be responsible for his next 70-cent windfall.
Yeah.
So we'll be right back with Matthew Archbold.
I was raised a Catholic and went to church every Sunday faithfully. I met a boy, and he was non-Catholic, so I left the church to be with him. When I was away from church, I yearned to be home. What brought me back was my longing for the Eucharist. The Eucharist fills me with the spirit that you can't find anywhere else. I have a peace when I walk through the doors of the Catholic Church, like that's where I belong.
We invite you to take another look at the Catholic Church. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Experience the incredible story of a woman who Time magazine named the most influential Catholic woman in the United States. Rita Rizzo, the future Mother Angelica, grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Canton, Ohio during the Great Depression. Rita's father abandoned the family before she was 5 years old. Her early years of trial were compounded by a debilitating illness until she was healed by Jesus through a woman named Rhoda Wise. That healing set her life on a course that would ultimately change the world. Learn the amazing story of Rita Rizzo at the Mother Angelica Museum in her hometown of Canton, Ohio. Go to www.motherangelicamuseum.com. Be inspired. Plan your visit now at motherangelicamuseum.com.
There's always something new at the St. Vincent de Paul Toledo Thrift Store. Let's find out what's happening this week.
Hello, summer. We have an amazing selection of all new dresses of all sizes. Come see us for our 25%, 50%, and 75% off sales. Our inventory is changing and expanding daily.
The St. Vincent de Paul Toledo Thrift Store, West Sylvania Avenue between Secor and Douglas. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 5.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shane Stanford with Ron Finn, and today we have Matthew Archbold, author, blogger, columnist, and Catholic father of 5, also award-winning journalist, and who's heard here every Thursday on Annunciation Radio's morning offering program.
Court-ordered. And
of course, we know he's author of best-selling pro-life novel in American Antigone, and also the novel Faith Under Fire, the dramatic stories of Christian courage. Today we've got him on discussing, of course, his creation, a Creative Minority Report, basically a spotlight with current topics and news stories with a little sense of humor from time to time. But let's get, let's just say a lot of these stories, I mean, we like to poke fun at some of the stuff, but a lot of them are just deadly serious. And it's sad because this sort of stuff is in the news all over everywhere. We've got a Catholic university out there, a college out there that's now paying for abortions, and it's offering, trans guidance. What happened there?
I mean, sadly, I would bet that the University of San Diego is not alone in this. It's just none of the others have been found out. Now, their Crisis magazine did a good job of outing them on this, but their argument is that California makes them cover abortion, but the truth is there's ways out of that. They could sue. Remember when Obamacare first happened, a bunch of schools sued, a bunch of Catholic colleges. And, I'll give a shout out. Remember Belmont Abbey College in North Carolina? They were the first institution to sue over the contraceptive mandate. And then all those other schools followed suit. Some of them did just to cover their backs, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Just to make themselves have a good PR day, and, still pretend that they were a little Catholic. But Belmont Abbey was the first institution, and they did a great job of standing up to it. But it's so sad when you see these institutions that are supposed to be evangelizing Catholicism to the world end up really becoming evangelists of the world to the church. Mm-hmm. They're trying to change the church to become more like the world. And let's be honest, that is the last thing we need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you, the idea that our universities are, they're more indoctrination centers today than anything else, and I'm sure they've been this way for decades. More of the how do I say it? More like the critical thought. These ideologies are born in the university, but when you look to a Catholic institution for more of a traditional education that's supposedly Catholic, and they do something like this, it feels like he gets just stabbed in the back.
Yeah, and you, of course, Matthew, have gone through this where you're with, I think, with your son, was it, or maybe with your daughter, where you were actually shopping colleges and visiting them and finding out about them. What did you learn out there?
Oh my gosh. I mean, some of them are absolutely secular institutions with some crucifixes hanging in the hall. I mean, it's just that, and even when you ask about it, which should be the tip-off, you know what I mean? If I'm asking about the school's Catholic identity, should be a tip-off. Maybe I want to hear something, but they can't even respond to me. They say, oh, no, you don't have to. You can ignore it. Most of my friends don't even, consider it a Catholic college. I literally heard them say that.
Wow.
It's just another college, but it's a great college. But it's just, but who cares about the Catholicism? The whole point of the institution was to bring Christ to the world, and it's just been distorted. And they think Catholic identity just means being nice and giving in on every single subject there is, and I've really tried to pick, with my kids, I tried to gear them towards, safer choices in Catholic colleges. And, I'll admit, I've hit a couple, I missed a couple, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not that imperfect, but I'm really doing my best. But some of it is you got to leave the Lord room to work on your children sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
You can't guide their every move after a while. And, that I always say that's why I used to think older people went to Mass because they were afraid of death, but no, it's because their children don't listen to them anymore, so they have to take it to a higher authority. That's why we go to daily Mass.
That's right.
Because our kids are too stupid to do the right thing, so we end up going to daily Mass and praying they get their heads on right.
Mm-hmm. Well, just the fact that you accompany your child on this college search, which is some of these kids are just left on their own to be recruited or to put some feelers out or talk to friends and to not have some of those, I guess, defining questions in mind to ask. Yeah, because they're looking at a college experience, and you're of course looking at a life experience, and and the education, the actual education, when they might not necessarily be doing that. So I think just to be there to accompany them on that, it really puts you kind of miles ahead of what some kids have to go through by themselves.
Yeah, and we're coming up to a really difficult time for colleges in that, a lot of these smaller colleges are going to go under, and it's happening all over the place. We just had a Cabrini College, which was a small Catholic college right here outside of Philly. It's been around for 130 years or something like that. And Villanova just bought up their campus. They're closing them, and they'll be gone.
Wow.
And it's just, and man, there's such a shame about that. 130 years of, a Catholic college and then just gone. And so much of it is that parents don't trust the institutions anymore. Mm-hmm. And you look at it, if you look at most of the gender, 60% of students at many of these colleges are women. Only 40% are men.
Oh, wow.
I've been stunned by this. And this is happening all over the place. So, and they're trying to even it out, but what they're doing is they're letting in underperforming guys in order to keep the numbers somewhat close. But guys are not going to college in the numbers that they used to because so many people just don't trust them. And if you look, there was a poll that came out recently that how you follow the red line through the years and it kind of evens out. Yeah, it goes a little up, goes a little down as far as the views of high school seniors. Well, in the past 3 years, it's gone up. It's skyrocketed. The number of high school boy seniors that consider themselves conservative or very conservative, and it's just shooting up. And there's a lot of people very worried. In fact, amazingly, the college that ran the test said this is a troubling turn towards fascism. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Well, I've heard enough in the news lately that if you combine that with being Catholic at the same time, you're likely on the FBI wanted list. You're being surveilled, because there was something recently where there was a report or somebody had testified that they were actually internally, at least, focusing on investigating. Catholic churches, particularly the people that were in the Catholic churches practicing the more traditional Orthodox faith, the trads were potentially domestic terrorists or something along this line, and I was flabbergasted. But for whatever reason, they seem to think that that these traditional Catholics are a threat, a national security threat, and I just have to scratch my head with that.
And I've attended, we have an FSSP parish, and I've attended it a few times, not many at all. But, you're running around with kids, you go to the Mass that you can go to that day. And, so I've been to the Latin Mass. I got to tell you, I'm bowled over by the amount of young parents with young kids that are there. There's definitely something to watch there. Something is happening there, and it's pretty amazing because when I go to the church I go to normally, there's not a lot of young people there, but at the Latin Mass there does seem to be it's growing, and there's a lot of young interest in it. It's pretty something special to watch. I keep telling the CYO director at our local Catholic grammar school, I was like, go over there. That's where all the kids are. You'll have plenty of basketball teams and baseball teams if you go over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And it's an interesting phenomenon, and you are seeing it more and more, because I think the more you get confronted and assaulted and bullied into these really strange views, these anti-life views, the more you must get a little indignant and say, wait a minute, what are they? This is what I believe. It makes you maybe, I guess, reinforce what your soul is telling you.
Absolutely. In fact, I know a number of people online. There's and they say that the attacks on the traditional Catholics have been so severe that they've actually become intrigued by it, because they're saying, okay, what is going on here that is making so many people so angry? Maybe they're doing something right, and they're looking into it. My brother, who attends exclusively the Latin Mass, I keep telling him, next time I go to the Latin Mass, though, I'm going to wear my black suit, my fedora, and the dark sunglasses, and just stand in back with a notepad.
There you go. I love that. Matthew Archbold, the familiar voice, is with us on Faith with Reasons today. And I know we're going to be hearing from you again tomorrow morning, Matt, but I know there's a lot of really odd news, troubling news sometimes, but there's a lot of good news out there too, and that was just one that we just talked about right there. But another one that's on CreativeMinorityReport.com right now, and we've been kind of reading about this, the Shroud of Turin and the carbon dating, and of course there's been debate about this. Is it the burial cloth of Jesus and so forth for decades now? But new evidence is out there, and or people are at least realizing that the evidence is real. So this is good news,
isn't it? There's so much good news out there, and I think sometimes it's easy not to focus on it because the bad news can be so prevalent. But one thing I've noticed, and this is pretty amazing out there, and I'll circle back around, but here you have Glenn Beck. I mean, this guy was an alcoholic, drug-addled DJ, and then he became a Mormon, and now all of a sudden he's talking about the Shroud of Turin, and he was a Catholic earlier. And, it's always interesting to watch people change in their path, and all of a sudden he's talking about the Shroud of Turin, and that the other day he was talking about the Rosary, and God is at work in these people's lives, and it's just amazing. And you have a guy, I don't know if you know Tim Pool at all.
Yeah.
He has a podcast. 5 years ago, that guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Wow.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden and I was watching him, and some of the things he said, I was like, wait a second, this guy there's something to him. Like, he's not just, a Bernie bro. And, God is at work, and he's changing hearts. You look at a guy like Dave Rubin, who's on the Daily Wire now. He didn't even believe in God, but now he does. And now, he had on Bishop Barron to talk about things. He's an out homosexual, but God is at work in these people's lives. You can't take a snapshot and say that's who that person is, because that's not what life is about.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing these people at one point, and with enough prayers and enough patience, and if they're open to it, things are moving, things are coming along, and a lot of people are opening their eyes to the work of God in the world. And getting back to the shroud, I mean, there's so much evidence that this is real. It's still inexplicable to the world of science how this image is on this shroud. They have no idea how it got there, other than I saw one scientist say, "Oh, all you need is like a small nuclear reactor."
Well, is that all you need?
On there. And he said it as if,
that's
I figured it all out.
at Walmart, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that the pollen on it is from Israel, the blood on it is AB. It's just so much there, and I always feel like God leaves us these things in order to boost our faith. So when we do have doubts, there's enough out there that you can say, "Oh, what am I thinking? Of course this is all true. Of course the universe didn't create itself," because that's what you're asked to believe. How silly is that? The universe just created itself. No, that's just silly. The universe was created as an act of love. Everything makes sense because there's a being in charge of it. When they found a code in DNA, how do you argue that the code was not written, that the code was just happenstance? Come on now. God is leading us to God. God is leading us to love. And, so many people right now, and, in the past 20 years have really turned their backs on it. But my goodness, if you see it and you take the temperature of the culture, people are waking up. It's just an amazing thing to watch. So many people are cluing into the fact that there is a God, and that God is love. And then they have to work out the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
One of the most fascinating people is Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yes.
Watching him, come to deeper understanding of his faith and what that means, the ramifications of it. And the poor guy is working it out in real time in public, which is really tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes he's his own worst enemy, but what a wonderful thing to see happen to someone that they accept it. And I'm not saying there's not going to be times when he falls and publicly, I'm sure, but it's a journey for all of us. And we were blessed, so many of us, with parents that handed down the faith to us, and we saw it, and we did our own research, and we came to it rather easily. A lot of people have to struggle and kick their way into this, and that's just as legit a way as ours.
Before we leave the topic of the shroud, I need to ask you, Matt, have you heard of the Mystery Man exhibition?
No.
So what they have done is they've taken the data that they collected, and this is tying into what we're just discussing. This was an interview that we were just discussing. I believe it was with Glenn Beck that had this gentleman on that was part of the team that did the original.
Barry Schwartz.
Yeah, Barry Schwartz, and I forget the date. Was it the 70s or the 80s? And I think it was the last time that the shroud they allowed the shroud to actually be tested, and they spent days or weeks with it. But the data that they collected is available, and the data was used over the last 15 years. And the data specifically that I'm talking about is the three-dimensional aspect of the image that's on the cloth. And they recreated, and of course, I mean, if you believe that the image is Christ, they recreated a 3D replica of Christ.
Oh wow!
And it was on exhibition in I believe in Spain, and it is currently touring the world. They've moved it to Italy. And I watched an interview. I think one of the very first people to see it was the local bishop. They unveiled it, and he confessed he immediately fell to his knees when he saw it. It is accurate to the location of every hair, the wounds, everything. All of this, it's amazing to see because, again, it took him 15 years to do it, but all of this information is contained in the three-dimensional data that's in the image. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to recreate a 3D model, a body, and they constructed it out. It's supposed to be accurate weight. How they were able to figure that out with the data that they have, but they said the data is there. So I'm looking forward to that coming to the United States. At some point in the near future, it should be. I think it's going to be shown on the East Coast and the West Coast, but it's currently in Italy. And I'd just like everybody to consider reading about it. The exhibition, it's themysteryman.com. It's all one word. And I learned of this. I watched a documentary because they interviewed the team of people. That was one person that led this, but there was a team of people that that worked on this again for 15 years to create what we can see today in an exhibit. It's amazing.
This is great. Normally, when I talk to Ron and Dave, I come away thinking these guys don't know anything. Thank God they have me. But today, I'm learning things. I learned about the Mother Teresa and Me movie. Now I learned about the Mystery Man, and this is a banner day.
Well, the bonus behind this is of course they're allowing everybody to come to their own conclusion, but this is just not the exhibit of the body of Christ, recreated from the shroud data. But the exhibit is basically explaining the data that's in the shroud. So you're going through this massive exhibit, looking at the data that's contained and how they deciphered it and how they were able to produce this body of Christ. And
I can't wait to research into this. That's just amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, it's a benefit for those that are skeptical of the shroud. It's a good learning tool for at least from what I've seen. Now I know EWTN covered it on Nightly News, and I think they did a 15 or 20 minute segment. You can find that on EWTN, and I think you can also find it in YouTube. And the documentary is also, I believe, available on YouTube. That's where I watch both of them, and it's well worth your time.
Oh, I definitely will, and let's pray that has an impact on people. Like I got to be honest though, having that image, say, like in your own house, it would make it very tough on me to continue being a jerk to my children, though. Having the face of God watching me,
Pressure. Look at the pressure. Yeah. My goodness.
So I also know that you got something about UFOs on your site. I got to go there because we're talking news. This some of the weirdest stuff that you just see is all over everywhere regarding UFOs. I mean, UFOs don't exist. We don't have any data or any information on UFOs. Now they're admitting it. I mean, what is this all about?
This is the most amazing thing. I find it hilarious that, before COVID, remember right before COVID,
mm-hmm.
there was that big deal where like 100,000 people, mostly pot smokers, were going to surround Area 51.
That's
and they
right.
were just going to charge into it because no one believed what the government had to say. Like, they were going to find out the truth. And then COVID happened and it all kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, nobody believed the government when they said there's no such thing as aliens, no evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flash forward 3 years. The government is now essentially saying there's definitely aliens and they're all around us and we have tech. And now everyone is saying, nah, you're lying about that
now. Yeah.
It's just, it shows you where we are with our institutions. But this didn't even raise the eyebrow of the culture. That you have these people. Now, let's be honest. The guy that was giving the testimony essentially said, I heard from a friend who saw this stuff. But, well, I'm going to need a little bit more before I change my view of the universe, okay?
Yeah.
And never mind that he seemed a bit like a used car salesman anyway. But,
yeah, well. And then, of course, there's news stories out there that the Vatican is part of the secret cover-up of the UFOs because they've got archives about UFOs in there. Like,
I think that goes back to Enoch or something.
I know. It's like, okay. This is getting, pretty strange.
But, my take on this, and it's just my own personal observation, but you notice that these stories seem to increase and decrease as perhaps there might be other news out there that's newsworthy. They're basically it's serving as a distraction. That's my observation.
I 100% agree. It is being used, and we all know that's it's being driven by the mainstream media. And when I was years and years ago, I kind of did some research into this, and this is crazy. You're going to think I'm crazy right now, okay? But, I mean, that's not going to change your opinion of it.
I was going to, sorry for my silence there, but yeah.
Years ago, I did research into this, okay? I read a bunch of things. This is nuts. But L. Ron Hubbard, the guy who came up with Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
And Aleister Crowley, the famous Satanist, right? They did a bunch of things together, and they did sacrifices. They did all sorts of crazy satanic stuff together. And they said, now this was in the 40s, I believe, and they said they punched through and they had contact with a being from another universe. And they drew a picture of it, and it looks exactly like the green alien that you would see today. But that leads me to believe that something else is going on here, and this is not UFOs from another planet, but something far more nefarious.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Good boy. Thanks for leaving us with that disturbing thought. I appreciate that. Not going to be able to sleep tonight. Thank you very much. Oh, Matt, it's always a pleasure, and so much to see and do on the website creativeminorityReport.com, so check that out, and follow Matt wherever you can. Hopefully
this
not.
Was definitely the most. This was the most tangent-filled conversation ever.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, we look forward to chatting with you tomorrow morning on Morning Offering, too. So have a great day.
God bless.